We're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, how did I know you were going to say that? I think we've gotten used to it at this particular point. Hey, happy Friday to everybody out there. Game time tomorrow, 11 o'clock, big noon kickoff. Joe Klatt, really enjoy that guy, man, on Saturdays. Glad we got him doing this game tomorrow. A big game. Outside of the game, man, it's a big recruiting weekend. If you didn't have an opportunity to see our show with Mike Roach, the recruiting editor insider with 247, that show on Monday. Go check that one out. Got a huge list of names, both in the 22 and 23 classes are going to be this weekend. They've already started showing up. And I think I just watched the Instagram story. Evan Stewart's there walking around the football field right now, I think on maybe an official visit there this weekend. That's probably the one I'm looking for. I think if someone commits soon, if Xavier Worthy shows what he did tomorrow, what he did in the Oklahoma game, I'm pretty sure there's probably a good chance that you might see Evan Stewart recommit to Texas in the near future.
And I would love that. But to your point about Mike Roach, yes, it's on YouTube, but we also this afternoon dropped a little shorter version of that podcast on the podcast platforms where you can find us: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and all other platforms. So if you don't find it on YouTube or don't have time to find it on YouTube, want to listen to volume only or audio only, it's available there as well.
Yeah. It's going to be a big game, man. Big game. Oklahoma State's ranked number 12. Texas still ranked after that loss against Oklahoma in the Red River shootout there, ranked number 25. I am always scared when I play Oklahoma State. I feel much better at home than I do on the road. Stillwater is one of those places where it just feels like it's so enclosed in on the players, and the stands are so close to the stands are so close to the field. Momentum can pick up there really fast. Hell, even those VY teams seen that there in Stillwater, where they had to come back from 3-4 touchdowns down to win those games in Stillwater. So definitely glad this one's at home. It's going to be really two strengths against each other. Oklahoma State's defense currently giving up 18 points a game versus Texas's offense. I think it's going to come down to that. We'll see what our offense is able to do against their defense. Brings back, I know they got a whole bunch of guys coming back with a whole bunch of experience because of that COVID year. They were able to take advantage of it. So as far as individuals coming back, they got a whole host of seniors on that defensive team that have seen us multiple times.
Yeah, really not worried about our offense versus their defense. And Charles kind of is going where I think we're going. This podcast is Texas offense can score. There's been moments in this season when they've gone 3 and out, and ultimately, we didn't play complimentary football in those times. 3 and outs in a row against Oklahoma. The defense continues to give up points, and then we're right back where we were, I would say, this time last year, and they're just not playing complimentary football and putting touchdowns on the board when you need to and getting stops when you need to. But yeah, I totally agree with your assessment. And this offense, I think, is going to score on this Oklahoma State defense. Is what can our defense do against their offense?
Absolutely,
I think it's the key.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at it, here, and we're going to talk quite a few stats here. Offensive stat comparison. If you're looking at the stats, and you actually go back and look at kind of where Spencer Sanders is currently at as quarterback, 781 yards is what he's passed for in all their games thus far, which is tied for 103rd in the nation. He almost has as many interceptions as he does touchdowns, 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and currently sitting at a 64.6 QBR, according to ESPN. But again, I think what they're going to try to do, what everybody else has done to us, is try to run the ball down our throat. Obviously, we've given up multiple 200-plus yard rushing games to offenses. What do you think the defensive scheme moving into this game with them probably trying to run the ball down our throat, using a dual-threat quarterback like Spencer Sanders and getting him out and making those off-schedule throws?
Yeah, that's when you get in trouble, right? Because, we've gotten beat with 2 single high safety or 2 deep safeties. Try and run some kind of hybrid scheme with 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 2 deep safeties. That's 8, and then your nickel and your 2 outside corners. What I want to do this time is go with single high. Let me have a safety in the box, and like you said, make Spencer Sanders beat me. Like, show them exotic fronts. Like, bring blitzes from different sides of the football field. We've seen Anthony Cook can blitz from that from that star position. You've seen that B.J. Foster and DeMarvin Overshown have a chance to get back in the backfield when schemed, appropriately. But I think it's time to stop playing two high safeties. I think Rod Babers said it best. When Pete Kwiatkowski joined this league, he got fooled by the hype. There's a lot of points being scored, so ultimately you think it's a passing league. But he's been baptized by fire. Ultimately, and seeing that this league is really a running league. So get your safeties in the box, allow them to stop the run. Maybe a 4-man front, maybe a 3-4 look, maybe with bigger bodies, maybe your design. But I definitely think the two single or the two safety look, deep safety look is probably not where you're looking to go against Oklahoma State.
So my question about, and again, going back to PK is being able to adjust with each football game that goes by, right? To me, if you're able to be multiple and adjust between 3-4 and 4-3, is it something where we try to get four guys down? Bring in like a heavy set with the 𝗟𝗞𝗘 𝗦𝗧, who only plays sparingly in between those three downs, and bring him in as a fourth guy that you can keep in and around the defensive line, and really call it a 4-3.
And we talked about that. And in the first quarter of the football game, when we came out and played football and it was 28-7, I think we had a good defensive game plan. The problem was Lincoln Riley adjusted to that game plan. And I think it was easier for him because there was no film on Caleb Williams. Like, you don't know what he's capable of. And again, we talked about it on the postgame show. There was a lot of 50-50 balls that beat us, but at the same time, a 4-man front with size would allow you to stuff the run a little bit better and put more pressure on him. Yes. But I think you've got to bring a 4-man front like Oklahoma did to us. You can't go traditional, the left, defensive end is going against the right tackle. The 3 technique is going against the left guard. The nose guard's going against the center and vice versa. You have to play stunts. You have to play games. You have to drop guys in zone dogs. Like, you have to show a 4-man front, but then play games out of have guys drop back. It just can't be, hey, we're going to rush against, double teams. I think we got to play those games in order to put pressure on the quarterback, number one, and to play run blitz game.
Yeah, I think if you're able to shut down the run, with Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders is one of those guys that's mistake prone. Obviously, if you look at his touchdown to interception, he almost reminds me of the other Spencer Rattler. Try to make plays outside of the pocket when it's probably not necessary for you to actually go outside of the pocket. And so I think if we're able to stop the run and you're able to keep him in the pocket and make sure those rush lanes are those rush lanes and not let him escape the pocket and become another runner. And again, you're probably going to see a lot of, zone read, probably a lot of RPO game from Oklahoma State this weekend versus our defense, because that's what they're set up to do with a running quarterback like Spencer Sanders. But yeah, I definitely think that this defense has to show up. You see it sparingly through games, man. You see it. It's on for 3 or 4, series, a couple of 3 or 4 series, and then all of a sudden it's if something happens, the offense goes 3 and out a couple, or does 3 and out a couple of times, and it's like the defense falls apart. And I said this last game, and I think I said it the game before that, is that the defense has to show up for 4 quarters, something they have not done outside of probably Rice. They have not showed up for 4 quarters. They've been playing parts of games really, really, really good where they should be at, where they're tackling, and then all of a sudden it falls apart. The tackling falls apart. They're in the hole where they need to be. It's just not consistently playing 4 quarters. And I need to see that from this Texas team moving forward if we have an opportunity to continue to win games and try to move ourselves towards a Big 12 championship to have a rematch with Oklahoma.
Exactly. And they hit the nail on the head. It's tackling. It's fundamentals and tackling, being where you're supposed to be, trusting that your job and the guy next to you will do his job, and not getting shook. Because again, when you're up 28-7 and all of a sudden you see, the team that is number 6 in the nation, or 5 in the nation, chasing you and catching you, you come out of your fundamentals and technique. And Steve Sarkisian, I think, talked about that on Monday, is don't do anything more than you have to do. Just make the plays you need to make. But absolutely, yeah. And that's the discouraging part, because the offense scored 48 points. And anytime you score 48 points, you're supposed to win football games. You shouldn't lose those football games. And we talked about it. Like, get at the beginning of the year, like give PK 48 points, and you're not supposed to lose those football games. But the great thing about it is I had them 10-2, you had them 10-2, they're 4-2. We think they can run, the table, now that Iowa State's shown us that they're probably not the team we thought they were. But again, it's going to take an A+ effort to go up there and win an Ames. So all is not lost. You got an opportunity to play Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship game. Just take care of business.
Yeah. Your nephew's got something to say on here tonight. I was actually on the phone with him before we came on tonight. Got some news. What was it? Wednesday evening. I think Wednesday evening is when I called you, Jeremy. My oldest daughter, Lexi's, called us and said she was 13 weeks pregnant. So I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time. This is my son on here. He called me. He was talking to me a little bit about it. We started talking a little bit of Texas Longhorn football. He said we need to bring that type of pressure we brought at the beginning of last week before we stopped in the second half. And it felt like we were getting home with that. It felt like we were getting home. Hell, you had Spencer Rattler running for his life. And if there's somebody you want running for their life, it's Spencer Rattler, because he's not known much of as a runner, but more of a pure pocket passer. It's
the second time since we played Oklahoma with him as a quarterback that he's gotten taken out, of a football game mid-game. This time, it's Caleb Williams coming in. Last time it's Tanner Mordecai. But it's one of those things that it's just, you didn't have a lot of film on Caleb Williams. When Caleb Williams came in the football game, he made plays with his legs. He made plays, with the 50-50 balls up the sidelines that got kind of beat on. But, yeah, just so – like, we did not play complimentary football the way we should have. And I don't know if they got gassed. Like, you can't – because it goes back to the old adage you kind of asked about post-game. And I think we were asked about pregame. Like, Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood are independent of Pete Kwiatkowski. Like, Xavier Worthy scores on a one-play drive. That gasses your defense is right back on the field. That was the first possession of the football game. So, of course, they're not gassed. But if that continues to happen, big play after big play, 2-play drives, 3-play drives, your defense is back on the field, they get gassed, But at the same time, you should still be able to hold on and solidify a 28-7 lead with the kind of depth that we thought we had in the front seven. We just got beat by a bunch of 50-50 balls and just guys being out of gaps and not being disciplined.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate it, Fanatics. Thanks, Steve, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, Johnny Munoz. Thank you, Queen Bee. I really do appreciate it. And I got another one here, Grandpa Clint. It's funny because one of my coworkers, I told them at work, they were really excited. I asked, I was telling them, and then one of my coworkers were like, "Hey, you're going to have to determine what you want to be called." And then she went through a whole host of names of what I could be called. And I kind of started stressing out a little bit. And I came home and I brought that same question to my wife and said, "Hey, what do you plan on being called?" And then it started stressing her a little bit. It started stressing her out a little bit too. But we're all excited, really, really excited. I was telling Jeremy that it's a little girl. So I'm going to tell Jeremy that I have to at CDC on Twitter and let him know that I need one of those gift packages sent here so we can make sure she gets her Texas Longhorn gear as soon as she's ready for it. So Cody Phillips here, $10. Been trying to think of the last defensive freshman to jump off the screen like X does on offense. Can you remember the last one?
Playmaking ability.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I would think Stearns, his freshman year he was a playmaker. He made a lot of plays in the secondary, interceptions and big hits. But before him, impact player would probably be, I like Malik Jefferson's, freshman year. I liked Earl Thomas's freshman year. But yeah, it'd be probably somebody out of the secondary, or maybe a Malik Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm definitely the last one is definitely going to be Stearns. In his freshman year, obviously, field goal block against USC at home. That was the impact play in that game, obviously. So it's probably going to be Stearns for me as far as being an impact player. But is it the level at what Xavier Worthy's doing right now? Absolutely not. I don't think I've seen a Texas Longhorn freshman do what he's doing. And if you go back, I was actually watching Rivals. I was looking through Rivals today, trying to get kind of going through each one of the recruiting sites, getting some information, and they're talking about there's an opportunity at the end of the year. This dude may be an All-American if he continues to play the way that he's playing. I think he's at 561 yards. I think he's number 6 in the nation in yards, touchdowns, in the list, number 1 in the Big 12. And again, I was talking to my son before this, and he was like, we were talking about the size. And I said, if you go back and look at it, these are the guys that Steve Sarkisian wants. You go back and look at, Devontae Smith. You go back and look at Jalen Waddle. You go back and look at all these Alabama wide receivers. He was going to be the next in line. If Sarkisian would have stayed at Alabama, he was probably going to be the next in line of these wide receivers there.
And that was without a productive game against TCU. Like he didn't catch any balls against TCU.
Yeah, took the week off.
Yeah, but yeah, it's crazy the performance. I think Earl was probably I think he was a redshirt freshman when he finally started playing at Texas, in my recollection. But yeah, but at the same time, redshirt freshmen don't have a whole lot of experience, so I kind of equate them the same way. But yeah, definitely Caden Stearns, the impact, the big plays. Similar to Worthy was probably the last guy, but it's hard for a defensive guy to make the kind of impact that Xavier Worthy's making.
Yeah, I was looking at something right now. They Texas Longhorns, obviously it's recruiting. It's probably recruiting centrics. All these nice little Twitter things they keep putting out about yards and obviously with Xavier Worthy and Bijan Robinson and Casey Thompson. And I think the last one I seen was out of the 34 touchdowns we have on offense, 33 of them are going to return next year.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Isaiah hit the nail on the head. We talked about this post game. Is this coaching staff, when folks are jumping on the coaching staff, but like these aren't their players, in Texas, that's far too often the story because you're getting rid of coaching staffs year after year after year. But yeah, he's the only Sark freshman recruit on this current roster. Now the transfers, yes, Devin Richardson and Davis and Thornton and those guys were all brought in by Sarkisian. But the only high school freshman that Steve Sarkisian has recruited to this program at this point is Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just returning next year. Obviously, Casey Thompson gets some. He continues to play these playing, and obviously his draft stock goes way up, which I can't see him leaving this year with 1 year of eligibility left to come back with Sark as your coach. I just don't see him leaving. So as of right now, 33 touchdowns that you currently have. Right, out of the 34 touchdowns you have, 33 of them have an opportunity to come back next year.
Yeah, Charles, you're absolutely right. Worthy was a transfer, but again, when you're talking transfer portal, generally you're grabbing guys with experience that you've seen tape on. This was a kid who committed to Michigan, and we snagged him without any experience. So to me, he's a recruit. So that's I look at it a little bit different.
Big one here, and we'll get back to the game here in a minute. Tyler Owens entering the transfer portal. I'm not sure if you've seen that today, Jeremy, while you were working.
I did.
Yeah, entered the transfer portal. We were hoping he was going to spin down, be like a 𝗟𝗏𝗘 𝗦𝗧, whose draft stock continues to rise. If you go out there and look, there's a lot of information out there about 𝗟𝗏𝗘 𝗦𝗧 in his draft stock rising pretty fast. So you just hope that Tyler Owens would stick it out, and hopefully he would spin down from safety to a 𝗟𝗏𝗘 type linebacker. But if you don't think this is the best fit for him, he's gone through multiple coaches, still not seeing the field. So what are they not seeing from him? I think is the question. Yeah.
And I really, really would have hoped, because his athletic ability we've talked about, his size, speed combination, could benefit the program in some kind of way. We've seen him on special teams flash, but I guess they just couldn't find a position that he was, they felt he was comfortable in, or he didn't like playing the current system that he's in. But it's unfortunate. But yeah, you're talking, John Doe's talking about the triplets of Casey, Xavier, and Bijan. You're talking about Bijan as a first-year starter. Yeah, he started in the Kansas State and Colorado game, but has limited experience. You're talking about Xavier Worthy, who's a true freshman. You're talking about Casey Thompson, who's in his has less than 5 starts in his college career. So yeah, you've got a good base. And we kind of talked about this post game. Like, you can't allow the loss to Oklahoma to impact your season. You didn't allow it to happen when you lost to Arkansas. The 10-2 was my prediction. 10-2 was Clint's prediction. That's still in reach. I think you can still beat Kansas. I think you can still beat Oklahoma State at home. I think you can beat Baylor. All these games are winnable. You just got to show up and play your best brand of ball.
Yeah. So I just want to put something out real quick. Fanatic Perspective actually put out a video today. I have not watched it yet, Steve, but I'm going to get to it with 𝗟𝗏𝗧 𝗦𝗧. And we're talking about, Sark guys, Kyle Flood guys. When you're talking about size, I think he's sitting at currently, if you may have it in front of you, I think 6'6", 361 pounds, is a monster. And to see him wait his turn and have an opportunity to play and start his first game after he's been here, what I believe is 6 years, is a testament to who he is as an individual. And I'm excited to see 𝗟𝗚𝗞𝗘 on Saturday. But when you're looking at guys that they want in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball, 𝗟𝗚𝗞𝗘 is probably exactly what they're looking for as far as size goes. Because if you go back and look at Alabama's offensive line, they sit about the same spot there. Probably not up at about 361, but somewhere probably between 320 and 350. You see it up there?
Yeah, the only guy that's in that size category you're talking about, 320 to 350, is the freshman Hayden Conner at 332.
Yep.
You're talking about Christian Jones, 314, Jalen Garth, 309, Junior Angilau is 319 pounds, Hayden Conner, 332, Jake Majors, 310, Logan Parr, 308. So all these guys are 320 and below. The only two guys on your roster that are currently offensive line greater than 320 pounds are Hayden Conner, or in that top three levels, are Hayden Conner and 𝗟𝗚𝗞𝗘.
So did you answer Isaiah's question here about Tyler and elite speed, maybe switch to offense?
I didn't. I just pushed it up there. It's always a conversation. Like we talked about post game about Ja'Tavion Sanders. What's Ja'Tavion Sanders? Getting him on the football field as a 5-star recruit is a defensive end at this point in our season when we lost Jacoby Jones last week. Like, is that conversation going to happen? Because being the 4th or 5th string tight end is really not adding to the ball club, but is it something he's willing to do? And same thing with Tyler Owens. He's been a safety since he came to Texas. There's been thoughts about spinning him down, but they may not be something the kid wanted to do. And at this point, he may not see himself on the 3 deep of the depth chart at safety, so he needs to move on. So, yeah, those conversations are probably happening before you lose a kid, to ask him to switch to another position on defense. And then maybe if you think he can help you on offense, those conversations are probably happening as well before he decides that he wants to enter the transfer portal and go give another school a chance.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that. Really, those conversations have already been had. And if he doesn't really care for what the coaches are asking him to do or switch positions or go from defense to the offense side of the ball, then he has to make a decision on what's best for him moving forward. Absolutely. Fanatic 𝗟𝗚𝗞𝗘 is a phenomenal kid, and hopefully he can help tomorrow. Thank you for mentioning him, Clint. Absolutely, man. I just think it's a testament to motivation and drive, and I think it also from a competition standpoint. You know what I'm saying? To me, you got to turn those riches to want people to want to compete. And if somebody is sitting there showing up to practice, you know what I'm saying? Because you've had your opportunity through multiple coaches for multiple years. You hadn't had an opportunity to start for any of these guys, but you come to practice, you compete every day, get up early in the mornings, go through everything you're supposed to include being a student athlete. And after, I think 1,384, I think minutes is what it was. I think I seen he has an opportunity to start. So that shows me that he shows up every day wanting to compete. And I think when it does that, that causes that entire line to want to be able to do that. That, hey, if I stick it out and I continue to compete, I may have an opportunity to go out here and start these games regardless of what year I'm at. You know what I'm saying? Because I think as long as you don't reach that potential and you still have room to grow, then I think it just creates that competition that it doesn't matter if you've been here day 1 or if you've been here day 791, I still have an opportunity to win a starting position.
Because we talked about this, like sometimes athletic ability or comfort level or the right coach can bring athletic ability out. And so if you can combine athletic ability with experience, then you've got it. A guy who's been in the program for 6 years. But if he finally, understands development under Kyle Flood that he didn't get under Herb Hand or previous offensive line coaches, and that talent can equal that experience, then you're working with something. And Fanatic Perspective is asking about Tyler Johnson. We've talked about this multiple times. Like, we feel like him and Isaiah Hookfin are two of the most athletic linemen on this football team. Where are they? You're saying it right now. Max Merrill is the 3rd team right guard. Isaiah Hookfin is the backup right tackle behind, Derek Kerstetter. But other than that, you don't see, as I'm looking at it, Tyler Johnson on the 3 deep at any position at this current status. So, and he's your highest recruited or the highest ranked recruit on the offensive line that you have
in the entire room. In the entire
that's what
room.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and to me, you've seen what could be in the Colorado game, but you also see that through multiple. Again, you got to look at it like this: through multiple coaches in that room, through multiple coaching staffs. What has he not done to earn that ability to start? Again, I'm with you. Tyler Johnson, he's been a missing piece for, it feels like, 3 years now. 2019, 20, and now 21, It feels like. When you come out that high, are you 100%? And again, I don't have conversations with these student athletes. I don't have with these players, but are you 100% committed to the football team? You start asking those kind of questions. What is keeping you from seeing the field? Because again, these are guys who are supposed to be extremely talented. Hell, I was excited about 𝗟𝗚𝗞𝗘 as well, like Jeremy said. But where are they? You're probably going to see Logan Parr, and you're probably going to see Hayden Conner and Andre Carrick before you see any other three of these guys. Because if you go back to listen to Steve Sarkisian's presser this weekend, he brought up those guys, and it sounds like that Christian Jones doesn't do well at left tackle. They're probably going to put Andre Carrick in there. If the guards aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it sounds like that Hayden Conner's the next guy up. He said it's all about competition. Either you show up or you don't show up. And if you're not, helping us on this offensive line, which happens to probably be the weakest position group currently on the team, we're gonna have to find somebody else to put out there. And if it's just gaining experience for younger guys moving forward, then that's what we have to do.
Yeah, and it just seems like we had the game plan in the first quarter, like two-step drop out to Xavier Worthy. He stiff arms a guy. He goes and scores. And then you get the football back. It's getting the ball out of Casey's hands quickly, getting the ball to Bijan in the outside perimeter game as quickly as you can, both in the run and the pass game. And that's the game plan for success, because these guys just don't hold up, and they really don't understand games. Like, they don't understand when guys move around who has who. And that's been the Achilles heel of this offensive line for a little bit. And you hope to get it corrected. But, yeah, when you start seeing names like Max Merrill on the depth chart and you don't see Tyler Johnson, it begs to question. And let's talk about Luke's, $5 super chat. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely, yep.
And all the guys that have donated to the channel tonight. I think this is like the third or fourth super chat. Really, really appreciate you guys' attendance, number one, and really appreciate you contributing to the channel. But Stephen will appreciate this. Will Washington take most of Whittington's reps? And why I say that is the Cowboys have a receiver, number 85, that I had on the tip of my tongue as I started thinking about it, Noah Brown. And whenever Noah Brown comes in the football game, because he's a big body and he's such an impressive blocker as a wide receiver, and it's kind of gone away from that this year. Like Kellen Moore's kind of used Noah Brown in the passing game. But years prior to this, every time Noah Brown came in the football game, it's a perimeter run, because he was going to put his defensive back on the ground and allow Zeke to do his thing. But yeah, so hopefully on running plays, you're going to see Washington take Whittington's reps, but hopefully they develop him and use 𝗟𝗏𝗘 Dixon with him in the passing game, so you don't have a tail. But normally you'll see Washington out there when I think it was 19 plays that he ran against Oklahoma, and it was 19 runs by Pro Football Focus. I did see that stat earlier this week, so it was kind of a given. If Washington's in the football game, it's probably going to be a run play. So let's get him out there and catching the ball.
But I think he can. I think he has the ability to be another big play guy. He just happens to be one of the bigger guys that we have in that wide receiver room, because you see it. You see it in spurts. At one point, Washington had a hard time catching the ball. It felt like every time he hit his hands, it was a drop pass. Now he's starting to catch these. I think he had an acrobatic catch this weekend. This happened to be out of bounds, and I think you're going to be able to see that from Marcus Washington. So I think you're right when it comes to tails. Obviously, when you see Marcus, if I'm a defense coordinator and I see Marcus Washington in the game, it's probably about a 99% chance they're probably going to run the ball, and we're going to have to get away from that. And I think Marcus Washington has the ability to be able to pick up where Whittington left off and be able to create his own plays. Is he a Whittington when it comes to versatility? Probably not. Is he a Whittington when it comes to probably a space-eating guy? Probably not. But they definitely have an opportunity to hit that seam with Washington as big as he is.
He's an Under Armour All-American.
Absolutely.
He didn't get to the Under Armour All-American game by blocking. I promise you. There's some pass catching ability there. There's some get open ability there. Again, he didn't get to the Under Armour All-American game, by blocking. He got there by pass catching. So yeah, just looking to see it, just like 𝗟𝗏𝗘 Dixon and all these other wide receivers that we have, that are going to have to step up in Whittington's absence, because it's a very, he's the second best receiver on this team. In my mind, I think 𝗟𝗏𝗘's proven himself to be the number one guy, but it's definitely a gap that we need to fill. And yeah, this is definitely an option. Keelan Robinson. I think we said this before the Oklahoma game. He got no touches. Free Keelan Robinson. Thank you, Johnny Munoz. That's an option. Like, get him in the slot. Let him, work on defensive backs, because he's shown you that he can catch the ball in space. He's going to run away from folks.
I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the previous coach, but I'm gonna go back to the previous coach. It's almost like Herman-like with Keelan Robinson. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if I'm gonna be mad at Sark about something on the offensive side of the ball, it's probably gonna be that we have not seen Keelan Robinson getting more touches when we've seen what Keelan Robinson can do in space and how fast he is. You don't run 23.7 miles per hour, which is, I think, sub 4.3 40. And then I'm going to keep you on the bench when I have an opportunity to probably run a wide receiver screen with you, or run a wide receiver, what's the word I'm looking for? Wide receiver
tunnel screen,
tunnel screen, or something like that to get you in space.
That's what I'm saying.
And allow you to use your speed.
Be a factor in the downfield game. Get him the football. He's a weapon. He has to be accounted for when he's on the football field. So like you said, put him in motion, jet sweep him. Again, I don't want to bring up the Cowboys, but the Cowboys use that a lot. They use CeeDee Lamb to move defenses. You got to start going back to that kind of stuff. You got to use, the weapons that you have to their ultimate. And it was easy probably to get out of that game plan when you're up what you were at half, 38-20, and you're trying. And this is where I feel like we kind of went back to last year. Is 38-20 should have been enough, right? Like, you have an 18-point lead to open the second half. Let's start grinding the clock. Let's start milking the clock. Let's start looking at the clock. Unfortunately, you started to try to milk the clock too early. You ran your best player, against basically a stacked box, play after play after play. You turned the ball over on downs 3 consecutive times, and they went down and scored. Like, you have to continue to let your weapons be weapons, regardless of what the clock says. Because I was trying to figure out how we were going to blow them out by 40. You know what I mean? Like, I had a number in my head that I wanted to score after we put 28 up in the first quarter. 28 times 4 is almost triple digits. Let's get there. All gas, no breaks, man.
And I'm going to tell you, he's not going to make that same mistake again. He will not make that same mistake again. I think Sark learned his lesson about that, that Red River shootout, being in the Cotton Bowl, the way that momentum changes, the way it does. He needed to be all gas, no brakes that entire game. And I think he learned from his lesson. And it's crazy to hear that, after that presser, and he was real as it gets, I want to see these guys again. I want to have an opportunity to play them again, because I think in his heart of heart, he knows they should have won that football game. There's no way they should have lost that football game. And he wants his opportunity to go back and right that wrong at the end of the year. And I think that's the motivation with him and this team moving forward, is to get that bad taste out of your mouth from the Cotton Bowl. And I think that's a good place to be for this football team.
And I did math in public again, which is a sin, right? So 28 times 4 is 112. I said almost triple digits. It is triple digits. And that's what I was thinking about. Hey, how can we get to 70 by halftime? You guys are and again, that's the thing we always go back to is the offense is independent of the defense. Yeah, it's a team game, absolutely, but it's taught in 3 phases. And I don't think the offense can ever score early enough. But what kind of strain does that put on your defense? At a time when, you don't want to get behind the chains, so you don't want to play conservative, you don't want to grind the clock, you want to allow your defense to rest. But I don't think enough points is a bad thing. And how early you score is a bad thing. We just got to figure out how to get depth on defense and put pressure on Caleb Williams and not allow him to torch us in the second half.
But as a team, I don't want to get with, and I said this, I think, after our the post-game show after the actual game last week, and is that I don't want Texas to wind up being the Oklahoma of past years. I don't want to have to rely on your offense each and every week to have to score 50 points because you know your defense is going to give up 48 points. Because that never won them anything but a Big 12 championship, which is a lot, which they've won, 6 straight. But then when you make it to the college football playoff, you're going against teams that are probably going to outscore you or stop you enough times where you can't score, and then all of a sudden they've outscored you and won the games that to get you to that national championship level. And I just don't want to be that same team. You know, I want to be able to throw out our defense every week and I want our defense to give up, less than, 28 points and our offense to go out there and score, 48 points like they're currently doing right now.
Yeah, because 𝗟𝗜𝗞𝗘 doing a lot of this stuff. Thank you, Luke. Yes, and K-Rob can motion, jet sweep, or other confusion motion in backfield for the defense along with Xavier Worthy. Yeah, 𝗟𝗟𝗏𝗧's your guy doing that right now. But when he comes off the football field, you have another guy who could do that same thing because 𝗟𝗟𝗏𝗧 runs a lot of deep routes. Thus, you'll see him get subbed out quite often. And when he's on the bench, like you said, you have a guy like Keenan Robinson who could take that place and do similar things to him.
Damn, Las Vegas Dudley here. Love your show and not even a Longhorn fan, but welcome to Texas Football Talk. I know you were on there, I think, post-game show. We've seen you in quite a few of the last shows.
Yep.
Hell, we're going to turn you into a Longhorn fan. You stick around here long enough, Las Vegas Dudley. Definitely hang out with us, stick around. We'll have you throwing up the hook'ems pretty soon there in Las Vegas, and you'll be stressing out like we do on Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons, and Saturday evenings. Having to take extra blood pressure medication as a Texas fans. We're going to get you there, man. Appreciate you, Las Vegas Dudley, for hanging out with us. It means a lot coming from someone that's not a fanatic like we are for the same football team that you would come in to our show and hang out with us. It's going to be very interesting if OU stops our running game. I think their defense mimics Arkansas's. If we can't get past and loosen them up, it might be a very low scoring game.
And they only give up 2.8 yards per rush. And it doesn't change, home and away, it's 2.8 for the season, 2.6 in their last 3 games, and 1.7, away versus home. So, yeah, their run defense is pretty stout, as the numbers say. But you got to find a way to get Bijan the football, even if it's not a traditional run game. That outside zone typically works against all teams we play if we just don't go away from it. And then try to find a way to get him the ball in the perimeter passing game, or let them come upfield and get behind them in the screen game. That may be your best running, because again, screen passes are an extension of the run game, So let's get him the football in his hands however we can to make big plays.
So another stat to look at is third down conversions. So Texas currently at home is sitting at about 69.23 conversion rate on third down, which is damn good. That's 7 out of 10 opportunities. You're getting a third down conversion. But if you look at where Oklahoma State is on third down conversion, you're looking at they only give up 3. If you have 10 opportunities, they're only giving up 3 third downs out of those 10 opportunities, just under 30%. On third down conversions. So that's definitely something to look at tomorrow. I think what's hurt us on third down conversions is how do we start on first down? And that's, procedure penalties or, all of a sudden you're 1 yard, 2 yard gain. You're sitting there like second down and 9, second down and 8. Then you're putting yourself at third down and 6. And then, you're stuck between, do you want to run Bijan or do you want, Casey to throw the ball? It starts on first down tomorrow. It really starts on first down every game. And I think that's where in the second half of Oklahoma last week, we couldn't do anything on first down, which set you up in second down and long. And then obviously, probably 3 NFL, talented guys had an opportunity to tee off on third and long last week, not giving you an opportunity to get on the continued drives.
And I'm going to chronicle the Dallas Cowboys real quick because, yes, they have great receivers in Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup when he's healthy, Dalton Schultz. Like they have a ton of receiver weapons for Dak Prescott. But what makes that offensive go is the ability to hand the ball to Zeke or Tony Pollard on first down and then get 4 or 5 yards. Steve Sarkisian's talked about this many, many times. Like, give me a manageable second down, like to where I don't even need to get yards and I'm still in a manageable third down. I can go, first and 10 now is second and 4. If I get an incomplete pass, guess what? I'm just in third and 4. Don't play behind the chains. Like you said, can't take negative That's the main thing to look at it with this offense going into this game is what do those second downs look like? Are we 2nd and 10? Are we 2nd and 9? Are we in those manageable 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5? Looks that allow us to tell the defense, hey, we can run here or we can pass here. A lot of times when you're 2nd and 9 and 10, it's only a pass play. Like they only had to prepare for one thing. But if you get those manageable, 2nd down and 4, 2nd down and 5, 2nd down and 6, then they don't know what to look for. They got to prepare for both.
But I think that's happening on the defense side of the ball for us as well, is that, we're getting gashed in the run game on 1st down, which is making manageable 2nd downs, which hell, at 3rd down, you're only 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and those drives consistently change. I know that PK is going to be a bend, don't break kind of guy, and we started off really well at the beginning of the season when you're looking at red zone efficiency on the defense side of the ball. The problem is that now we're allowing touchdowns, touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. In that bend don't break, instead of giving up field goals, now we're giving up touchdowns. At the beginning of last game, we did really good. Again, bend don't break, bend don't break. Burchett had to come in and he's got to kick field goals. Had an opportunity and finally they got to a point where Spencer Rattler wasn't doing it for him after a couple of turnovers. And they told him to exit stage left, and they brought Caleb Williams in, who obviously we know what he did to us. Let's go back to yards per play though, which I think because based on we've had an opportunity because Bijan running for 20, 30 yards at a time, Xavier Worthy going for 74, 75 yards at the beginning of the game. Our current yards per play is 7 yards per play. That's almost a 1st down every time you run a play.
Yeah.
But I think that is out there because of the big plays we've had. Because it's either you do really, really well or you do really, really bad, and somewhere in between we're there.
Yeah, but I would take those explosive plays that we get, and I would take our points per game average and think that would beat every football team we played minus Arkansas. Like you lost 2 games, but the second game you lost, you scored 48 points. Explosive plays like that. That's like we talked about a little bit earlier. Is it death by 1,000 cuts? You drive the field in 12-play drives and you tire out their defense, and your defense gets a chance to rest, or do you take advantage of these explosive plays, get the momentum on your side, put 7 points on the board, but know that your defense may not have the rest that they need to go back out there and defend against the team like Oklahoma, who has just as many stars as you do on offense. So that's the thing. I think the average works itself out with explosives and negatives, like you said, and I'll take seven yards per play no matter how I get it and be happy with it. And like I said, you got to know that you score 40+ points per game. 9 times out of 10, you're going to win those football games.
Glenn Keller defense held OU to 3 field goals in the 3rd quarter. Again, but couldn't score. That's the problem. Again, that's where that complementary football comes in. Me and Jeremy always, we're talking through the games, and it's like, okay, I'll take that. Let's go get 7 for the 3. Now we're up +4. Let's take that 7 for that 3. Now we're up +8. You take that 7 for that 3. Now you're up, damn near 2 scores. But unfortunately, in the 3rd quarter, as you're giving up field goals, your offense is unable to score. They're unable to drive the ball. 81-61 was the plays in that game. Oklahoma ran 81 plays to our 61 plays, and I think they had maybe, if and somebody help me out here, I may be wrong, but 10 minutes more in possession time.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's the calamity. That's the question. Is you scored your points by explosive plays. They methodically run down the football field, especially in the second half with their run game. Like 26 ate our lunch. He ate our lunch on the final play of the game. Like I would have loved seeing Burkett kick a 51-yard field goal to win the game versus this guy running 33 yards downfield and scoring a touchdown. It's pretty much time expires. But at the same time, that's what you were dealt with, and that's because guys were not where they were supposed to be. They were not disciplined when the time came. But we got a couple of super chats rolling in.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
and I did want to address the recruiting question, but we'll come back to that after we address the super chats. Am I the only one thinking it'd be worthwhile to get Ja'Tavion Sanders involved on 3rd down in the red zone? Jeff Banks is the best tight end coach in the country, and if he don't think that Ja'Tavion Sanders could play tight end at this point, which he's not playing, like we haven't even seen 81 on the field. We've seen a little bit of Helm, a lot of Wiley, and a lot more of Brewer. So at this point, he's a weapon. He's a weapon, but for some reason at this point, as a true freshman, they don't trust him to be on the football field playing tight end. You see any different?
No, I don't see any different. I think that there's Jeff Banks is probably one of the, if not the best tight end / special teams coaches in the country. We've seen the way that the special teams showed up. We've seen a difference, and I believe what the tight ends are able to do. Obviously, you probably haven't got them as involved as what you want to do. But again, you're talking about recruiting to your scheme, and you've gotten guys that you didn't recruit to your scheme. When we're talking about tight ends, do they have the guys that they want currently in there? But I think that if Wiley and Brewer, and like you said, we haven't seen very much of him or Davis either. Got to kind of trust what Coach Banks is doing right now. If anything, we'd probably want to see 𝗟𝗓𝗓 Sanders on the other side of the ball on third down, rushing the quarterback. But again, what it sounds like is that's his decision that he's made, that he wants to play on the offensive side of the ball. He wants to be a tight end, not so much a defensive end at the University of Texas, because that's the biggest question for me is what third down on the other side of the ball is where I'd love to see him rushing that quarterback versus third down on the opposite side of the ball in the red zone, where you probably have enough athletes out there to score anyway without 𝗟𝗓𝗓 Sanders. Yeah.
Let's talk about Wes Bearden's, recruiting question that you just knocked down.
No, I was pushing at the same time you are. Yeah.
Okay. With Denver Harris deciding to attend the LSU game this weekend, do you think Texas recruits 𝗟𝗑𝗪 extra hard this weekend? Absolutely, they do. He's a top 5 safety in the country. When Bryce Anderson decided he was going to go to A&M, Texas staff immediately, not that they didn't have interest in 𝗟𝗑𝗪, because I know they offered him very early this year, but immediately turned their sights on him. Again, Champ Lewis, the cornerback commit out of New Orleans, is a teammate of his. Jamon Tappert is a friend of his. Like, we're recruiting, the state of Louisiana, not just because, we definitely want to, and Mike talked about this on Monday, we definitely want to open up those recruiting lines with the state of Louisiana, but this is a top 5 safety in the country. And I believe, like Mike told us the other day, he believes Austin Jordan is a cornerback commit. And so you got Brian Allen Jr., the kid out of Aledo, who's your safety. You have 𝗟𝗑𝗪, who would be his safety. You'd have Champ Lewis out of New Orleans. And then Austin Jordan would play corner. At this point, would be your secondary commits. But yeah, you're definitely still going after Denver Harris. You're not letting Denver Harris go to Alabama or LSU. And again, with these in-state kids, it's a lot easier to get to Texas for a game day, if you're in Houston versus the guys who are out of state. So definitely going to recruit him very hard. Probably going to get Denver Harris on campus by the end of the season.
Yeah, and so if you look at it currently, I'll kind of run through some of these list of names, and you can find them if you're a subscriber to 247. They got a whole list of names here between official visitors and unofficial visitors, and I may miss them. You're talking about official visitors right now. 𝗟𝗑𝗪 being one of those. Malik Ogbo. Again, we need some offensive linemen, right? Ernest Green, so Malik Ogbo is offensive line out of Washington. Ernest Green, offensive lineman out of California. Quincy Wiggins, another defensive lineman that you're trying to get. And then Larry Turner Goodman is another safety opportunity as well there. And I think if you go back and listen to the show we did with Mike Roach, 𝗟𝗑𝗪 has been looked at that star position, just like Harold Perkins is. Not so much as an actual true safety, but looking at it as that star position. Like Taylor Rapp played it. I think Taylor Rapp, right, that played at Washington. Individual that can play in the box, but also be able to cover in space at that star position. And then obviously some unofficial visitors, Arch Manning, obviously that's huge. Jonte Cook, or Ruben Owens, running back, 23 class. Jonte Cook out of our alma mater, DeSoto, in that 23 class. Will Randall, who happens to play with Arch Manning there in Louisiana. Jalen Hale, Marcus Deal, Vernon Glover, a cornerback in the 23 class. Anthony Hill, linebacker, number 1 linebacker from Denton Ryan. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. To include Jaleel Skinner, tight end, that just recently committed to Alabama last week. So
yeah, and so somebody asked us a little bit earlier, and I had it up for a minute, and then all the super chats started coming in, so I removed it. How big is this recruiting weekend? It's huge. We talked about it on our show with Mike on Monday. It's probably the largest recruiting weekend Texas has had on campus in a heck of a long time, because you didn't have anybody on campus last year for games. So it's probably a big recruiting weekend. You talked about Arch Manning coming there too, for 22, 23, and 24. or all guys are going to be there. It's probably the biggest recruiting weekend on campus for a while.
They said I want to say that it's probably if you go back and look at that 2019 LSU game, you probably had. I'd have to probably go back and look at the list. Mike probably has it somewhere, but I think he said LSU, USC were probably the last two big games in DKR where you had the amount of recruits that you currently have going on this weekend with Oklahoma State there in DKR.
Yeah, so let me touch this one real quick. And I think, Ken, it's because let me just read the question and I'll tell you what I think. Think we spend too much time on the offense, on what the offense didn't do, and not enough time on what the defense didn't do. Can't cover, no pressure. So you lost your best pure pass rusher in Jacoby Jones in the first quarter. And after the first quarter, I felt like the defense played very, very well. But like folks are talking about, our defensive coaches didn't adjust, one, to Caleb Williams coming in the football game. And two, I think Pete Kwiatkowski's still trying to figure out what he has, in that defensive front. I don't think he's so concerned in the secondary because, again, those were 50-50 balls that we got beat for. Like Marvin Mims out jumping BJ Foster is not a good thing. BJ Foster's 6'3", Marvin Mims is about 6'1". But hey, the dude threw a punt up there and the guy caught it over him. And that happened more than once, on third down. Guy steps out of bounds, reestablishes position, and busts a big play. I think Johnny had a stat of talking about our explosive plays that Oklahoma had 7 plays that accounted for 300 of their total yards. Like, this was a game of explosives, like busted coverage and guys being out of position, or just guys making plays on the football. And so I think, like, it's not a lack of talking about it. It's just we're trying to discover where we are, with this group of athletes and what best suits them as far as the defensive scheme. And I think Pete Kwiatkowski's still working through that. I definitely know it's not too high safeties at this point. You got to bring a safety down. You got to stop the run, and you got to make these quarterbacks in the Big 12 beat you. But
I think the lack of pressure from the defensive line on a quarterback means that your cornerbacks and your safeties have to cover in space longer. So if you go back and look at it percentage wise, I think we're giving up like 75% to quarterbacks passing. And again, if the longer that a quarterback has because they're sitting in the pocket for days because there is no pressure, there's only so much time that a cornerback and safeties can stick with these wide receivers because they don't know where the next move they're going to make. If I'm going left and then all of a sudden the quarterback's out of the pocket or they have a bunch of time, I'm going to veer off to where my quarterback's going to get myself open to create space. So I think pressure is the number one thing that we need. I think if you see the pressure go up, I think you see our defensive backs play much better because I don't think it's so much they're out of I guess I don't think it's so much that they're not where they need to be at. One, again, going back to those 50-50 balls, I didn't see a cornerback not be around. Again, you're throwing up a punt and one guy goes down. I think it's not so much being out of place. I think it's, again, if you're not getting pressure to the quarterback, you're asking your defensive backs to hang on to wide receivers for 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds while a quarterback's running around the backfield looking to make a play.
Absolutely. And Luke's talking about Foster was blatantly pushed off on one of those jump balls. But again, you allowed the quarterback to scramble for 8 seconds, throw a punt up in the air, and somebody caught the ball over you. And I agree that there was a lot of calls in that game that could have been misconstrued. But on this podcast, we don't talk about referees that much. And I saw 3 or 4 holding calls on the touchdown run at the end of the football game. Steal shots of guys grabbing cloth. But we know Texas doesn't get those penalties that most teams get. And you found yourself in a position late in the game where, like I was talking about, you could have scored, by my calculation, 112 points, or, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but could have had an opportunity to widen the lead to where these punts, these punt throws by Caleb Williams didn't have a chance to make a difference.
Again, I think the defensive backs get beat up because they're defensive backs, man. It's one of those positions that the eye's automatically going to go there because it's only quarterback, wide receiver, and cornerback. That makes sense. It's easier to see that a cornerback gets that a cornerback gets beat versus a linebacker not being in the right hole. That makes sense. Yeah. So if you go back and look at Rattler's stats, again, you had their quarterback who is probably the number one pick in the NFL, and probably if you're looking at betting odds, you're probably the guy to win the Heisman Trophy coming in this year. That I think went 7 for 15 in the first half of that game, threw an interception. You created a fumble, so he was probably under 50%. In reception, in passing percentage. So I don't want to put it strictly on these defensive backs. I think these defensive backs, believe it or not, have played much better than I thought they were going to play coming into the season, because the defensive backs is the ones that have been getting killed year after year after year after year. I think it's not a defensive back thing right now. I think it's a pressure thing, and I think we're being gouged for 200-plus yards because our defensive line and our linebackers are either not in the hole and giving up big plays. But as far as the defensive back goes, yeah, do I think that we need to tweak some talent back there? Do I think we need to get a couple of more guys in the 2D back there? Do I think there needs to be some more development with those guys back there? But I can't consistently beat up the defensive back when you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, and you get a guy like Caleb Williams that is sitting back there for eight seconds after you got the previous quarterback benched because he couldn't throw the ball.
And that's PK's problem, is he has to play two deep safeties because he does have to cover longer because you're not getting a pass rush. And I don't think that's going to get any better, guys, to be honest with you. Like losing Jacoby Jones, who is probably your best pass rusher, that's why I'm thinking you got to go with the 4-man front, and you got to play games up front, because I don't think the guys that we currently have the ability to rush the passer like we thought they could coming to this football season. So you're going to have to find areas where DeMarvion Overshown delayed blitzes. And on that blitz where he got the Spencer Rattler, that was not a blitz. He was a spy who saw an opportunity to get to the quarterback because the quarterback was holding the football too long, and he made a split-second decision to get after it. That was not a design blitz. That was a guy who was a spying on the quarterback, who saw the quarterback was holding the ball too long and got after him. I just don't know that we're going to get that kind of pass rush without having, exotic schemes with our defensive line. That's why I was talking about going the 4-man front versus the 3-man front, because you got to figure out a way to get pressure. And I just don't know that our 4 dudes lined up running at offensive tackles and offensive guards and centers double teams is the way we're going to be able to get after the passer. I haven't seen it this year.
To me, your top guys on the defensive line thus far through almost halfway through the season. This is a break almost. Let's get through Oklahoma State, and then all of a sudden we got a bye next week, and the second part of the season starts. I think it's actually a perfect time for a bye because you actually set up the second part of your season. Alfred Collins, Ojimo, and probably Byron Murphy are probably your best, and Sweat are probably your best 4 defensive linemen midway through the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. But guys are calling for Collins, and I'm really interested to see because he doesn't have the same body type as Jacoby Jones. They're totally different body types, but he's going to start at Jack, aside Coburn and Sweat this weekend, and probably Ray Thornton on the other end. We'll see. So, yeah, it's a different dynamic. And I thought it was the dynamic we needed to use to be able to stop the run better. But hopefully, Alfred Collins can rush the passer as good or better than Jacoby Jones. It's going to be interesting to watch that defensive front. But we got to get more pass rush. We have to. It's the key to the season in my mind. Like, it's the trenches game, and we talked about this ad nauseum. Like, the offensive line needs to be able to pick up the pass rush from the other team because I think they run block pretty well. It's the pass blocking on the offensive side and the pass rush on the defensive side. That's what this season's going to come down to in my mind.
Yeah. And go back to recruiting trail. You're talking about defensive line, and I think that's the reason why they're doing what they do. Now, Justice Finkley, Alabama, Dre Bledsoe, Texas guy, Jamon Tapp, Louisiana, Aaron Bryant, out of Mississippi, Christopher Ross, Texas guy, Derek Brown, Texas guy, Zach Swanson, Arizona guy. And I think now they're looking at trying to get Wiggins. And there may be more defensive line guys that they're trying to get. If you go look at it, I think I looked at it last night. It rivals N247. I think each one of these guys, if you look at Justice Finkley, Dre Bledsoe, Jamon Tapp, and Aaron Bryant, Christopher Ross, Those 5 guys are in the top 25 of all defensive linemen in the country.
Yeah, and top 200 players.
Yep.
That in talking to Mike, there's a chance for a lot of these guys to move up. We're going to have to see, but yeah, I think they understand, and that's why you talked about, Ernest Green and Malik Ogbo and Devon Campbell. Like, this 22 class has to be made up of. I think we're done on the defensive line at this point. Maybe one more dude. I don't think we're going to have another dude to commit to this class on the defensive line, but you got to start solidifying other guys around Cole Hudson and Connor Robertson at this point on the offensive line.
That is a priority. That is a priority. So, and I forgot, Anthony Jones is also going to be one of those defensive line guys too. He's currently is an athlete out of Las Vegas, but when talking to Mike Roach, he thinks he's probably going to be, or has the body to probably be, the best pure pass rusher out of all of these guys based on his athletic ability. He's a tight end. I think he went for like 100 yards or so in his last game with 2 touchdowns. So he's an athletic guy, and he's probably going to be probably the pure pass rusher out of all these guys we named.
Colleen's ready to get barbecue. You ready to go?
He is. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm supposed to be. There's a guy that was in here earlier. He is from San Antonio. He actually went to my daughter's high school. There are, if you've heard of Cibolo Steel, Church Clemens is playing Cibolo Steel. It's called the Battle of the 3009 tonight. So that's where I'm headed to after I get off here. Jeremy's going to get barbecue. But we'll be back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. For the pregame chat, the in-game chat, 10 o'clock.
Be nice to Colleen, please.
Please be nice to Colleen. She's the one that's moderating that. Jeremy's wife's moderating that, our producer. And then we will be back tomorrow, probably around 30 minutes after kickoff, somewhere around there, plus or minus. It's always kind of a guessing game with that. But make sure you go over it. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to our recruiting podcast with Mike Roach, go over to any podcast of your choice. If you're listening to Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever your podcast choice is, you can find it there at Texas Football Talk. We just put that out there today. You want to go ahead, Jeremy?
Yeah, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you hadn't. Really appreciate your attendance tonight. Really appreciate the super chats. Again, DraftKings is our sponsor. We're on the TPPN network. Please log into DraftKings, get your daily fantasy account set up with them, and continue to watch Texas Football Talk. We're going to be right back at them tomorrow. Again, we got a little bit delayed. Gave you a Monday show. Wanted to do a pregame show on Wednesday, but work always takes us, other places. But really appreciate you guys' attendance. Like the video. See you really soon. Absolutely, man. You can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk, on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and on Instagram at TX Football Talk. We'll see you tomorrow. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your Friday night, and hook 'em. Hook 'em.